Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I am bringing back a segment on my channel I have not done in quite a while. This is a haul video. And for the sake of today's video, I did decide to specialize or kind of narrow the scope of the haul to include basically just works I've recently picked up from Marvel and DC Comics. In all cases, they are hardcover collections, and in many cases, they are omnibus edition. I am really excited to kind of just showcase a lot of the books that have been coming in recently, many of which I do plan to do reviews on sometime in the near future. So if you're interested in some of the titles you see in this video, let me know in the comments section, and we'll try to get a review out to all of you. And before we jump into that haul, I just want to take a quick moment to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, perhaps some of the books you see in this very video, I always encourage you to check out the website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see anything on their site you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book haul. First on the list today, in no particular order, we have Wolverine by Jason Aaron Omnibus Volume 1. This is the first volume of what is really a 3-volume set. Interestingly enough, Marvel doesn't call the remaining volumes Volume 2 and 3, but if you are interested, Jason Aaron's run on Wolverine continues in the Wolverine Goes to Hell Omnibus, and finally with Wolverine and the X-Men Omnibus. I do think that Wolverine Goes to Hell does get a reprint, or has already gotten a reprint this month at the time of the recording in July here. And frankly, I'm not sure if Wolverine and the X-Men is still in print, but going back to this collection, this is a reprint from Marvel Comics, and interestingly enough, this was an omnibus I did own years and years and years ago. I did have an earlier printing of this very book before I decided to leave the hobby for a few years. Coming back to the hobby though, Wolverine is and has always been one of my favorite comic book characters, and I knew that this was a book I was hoping to get again in the collection, especially if I could get it at an in-print price. Thankfully, Marvel has reprinted this, so I was really happy to add this back to the collection. This was a run I've always started, but I've never quite finished, so it is fun to revisit some of these issues that I remember from all those years ago, and to hopefully read further than I ever have. What's fun about this run is you really don't need to know a ton about Wolverine to jump right in and enjoy the stories. As far as I know, there's not a ton of gigantic overarching narrative, just more of self-contained couple-issue story arcs, and I think that Wolverine is a character that really benefits from things like this. Some of the early stories have Wolverine kind of imprisoned. We have another story with him trying to find Mystique. I actually really like that story quite a bit. And of course, there's a lot more than that in the pages of this omnibus. Like I mentioned, if you would like to hear a full review of this title as I finish it up, definitely let me know in the comments. But this has been Wolverine by Jason Aaron Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. Next on the list today is a DC Comics omnibus. This is the Red Lanterns Omnibus from Peter Milligan and Charles Soule. And I'll say straight from the jump, this was a title I was really curious about. I've actually always been curious about this run. I am a huge fan of DC Comics' New 52 era. For those that don't know, this is the era in DC Comics history right after the events of Flashpoint, which basically soft rebooted a lot of their titles. They canceled all their books, started over with a brand new issue 1, and they played fast and loose with a lot of the continuity. Thankfully, Green Lantern by Jeff Johns, which was an ongoing title throughout this transition, was relatively undisturbed, but something that came out of that run was the emergence of the Red Lanterns, the Red Lantern Corps, Atrocitus, and his whole team. I was aware he had a spin-off title here, but I never really ventured into this series. When I heard that they were doing an omnibus over at DC, I was pretty elated. The fact that Organic Price Books then saw fit to send this over as a sponsored title made me even happier still. I recently collected all of the Green Lantern by Jeff Johns omnibuses, or at least that 3-volume set, so I thought that this would be a really fun companion, as I really do like that time in Green Lantern's history. So far, making my way into the Red Lanterns Omnibus. I will admit I'm only a few issues in, maybe, I don't know, 5 issues, give or take, but I've been enjoying it. I think the art is pretty fun. We start off with the run by Peter Milligan, and we get kind of reacquainted with Atrocitus and some of his kind of closest core of Lanterns, and I got to know a little bit more about the Red Lantern Corps. They are the part of the emotional light spectrum that focuses on rage, and I think it is really interesting to see the angle of this series. In many ways, they are anti-heroes or almost villains, but we kind of have it framed through the lens that they're here for vengeance on those that are innocent, that have, been tragically like abused or hurt or things like that. They're like agents of vengeance, and I thought that that was a really unique take on these characters, and I am interested to see where we go from here. But yeah, this is Red Lanterns from DC. Okay, next on the list here we have Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 5 from Marvel Comics. This was a huge get for me, and honestly, I'm really excited. I have had volumes 1 through 4 for some time, and while I know this omnibus has been out for a little bit now, I had really kind of dragged my heels getting around to picking up a copy. This takes place in the run after the legendary run from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This is during the Roy Thomas era on Fantastic Four, and these are all issues I have never read. I am a huge fan of Roy Thomas, though. I really enjoyed what he did in the Avengers and some of the early Conan the Barbarian stuff, so I'm interested to see what his take is on Fantastic Four. So far, flipping through, I do see a lot that really does remind me of the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby era, so I'm hoping there's some familiarity there. I'm, like I said, a fan of this franchise. I'm a fan of these characters, and I think for me, the fact that we're now in a volume 6 of Fantastic Four, it's just a real dream. We're starting to crest into kind of the early Bronze Age, and I just think that that is, well, fantastic. This franchise has also really been on my mind recently, of course, with the upcoming MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, film set to release this month at the time of the recording in July of 2025, Fantastic Four First Steps. Anyway, with that film coming out, I just feel like Fantastic Four is in the zeitgeist like never before, or at least in a long time, so I thought it was time to really start trying to pick up some of these missing pieces in my Fantastic Four Omnibus library. To that end, I was really happy to pick up a copy of Volume 5, and yeah, I'm just really digging it. So far, the art all looks really sharp as well. Like I said, I think that this is going to be a very fun run, and I'm excited to make my way through chronologically. I will confess, I am somewhere still in the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby era, so it will be a minute before I get to Volume 5, but if it is something you want to see reviewed on my channel, definitely let me know, and in the meantime, I can highly recommend a review that Taylor Talks Comics did on his channel. Friend of the channel, Taylor does a great job reviewing books, and he did a fantastic one for this very omnibus. Okay, next up on my list today is the Judgment Day Omnibus from Marvel Comics. Now, this is a really fun addition to the collection. This is one that I have really been on the fence about for some time. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about this event. Some people really loved it, some people say it was passable, or just kind of anything in the middle there. But for those that don't know, this is the big crossover event, largely between the Avengers, X-Men, and the Eternals. So this is A.X.E Judgment Day. I probably should have said that. A.X.E is, of course, an acronym for Avengers, X-Men, Eternals. Why I really wanted to pick this up, though, other than just to check out what Kieran Gillen brings to the table here, is because this is during the Krakoa era for X-Men, and I have been just such a sucker for this period of time in X-Men history, so I thought that this was an event omnibus I really wanted to try to get before it went out of print. I'm not really familiar with what was happening during this period of Avengers. I have read of some of Gillen's Eternals, which I know kind of tee up this event omnibus, and so far starting this out, I really am happy I'm even passingly aware of the Eternals because they seem really prominent in this event. I've seen some people say, hey, is this just like AVX, the Avengers versus X-Men event, just with Eternals thrown in there? Is it kind of a three-way battle between all these teams? And what I will say is, while we do have some tensions and fights or skirmishes between these groups, Judgment Day really does seem to evolve into something more than that, and without spoiling too much, I will say it's more than just a fight between some of these teams. It becomes about something much bigger and broader. As far as what I feel about the full event, you'll just have to wait and see after I finish it out, but I am really happy to have this in the collection. Flipping through, I have been really floored by some of the art we have throughout this collection. I think the art is all very strong here, and I can say I've liked the writing as well pretty thoroughly. I would be curious in the comments section, spoiler free if possible, what were your thoughts on the Judgment Day event or A.X.E Judgment Day? I would love to get some more feedback, maybe some encouragement to keep going in my read through, but for right now, this was a huge get for me, and I'm so happy I finally have it in the personal collection. Alright, bub, next on the haul list for today is the Wolverine Omnibus Volume 6 from Marvel Comics. That's right, we're all the way up to Volume 6. This is also the second Wolverine Omnibus I'm talking about in the video today. As I said earlier during the Jason Aaron Omnibus part of this video, I am a big fan of Wolverine, and this is something on the list that I knew I was hoping to get a copy of. I have collected Volumes 1 through 5. Like Fantastic Four, I am still making my way through that chronological volume run in Omnibus Edition. I'm somewhere in Volume 3. It is fantastic, absolutely incredible. But one of the reasons I've been trying to pick up these omnibuses, because Wolverine's my favorite character, I just don't want to get to the volume I actually need to be on, only to have it be out of print and just have exorbitant price points. So I saw Volume 6, I thought I have Volumes 1 through 5, hopefully I can get a copy here, so I'm elated to welcome it into the collection. Admittedly, I have heard extremely mixed or even negative reviews about some of the content in Wolverine at this time, but I know that I generally grade a bit easier than most, and I'm hoping because I like this character so much that it'll win me over. I should say, even though I am reading Volume 3, I did go ahead and start this Volume 6, and so far I find it to be really engaging. This is not a huge spoiler as you see it in the first issue of this collection, but we have Wolverine pairing up with Elektra. I think that this is a combo that is really, really fun to see kind of play out. This is during a period of time where Wolverine is arguably his most animalistic, and he's trying to not lose his humanity. I think character-wise, this is a really fascinating point to be a Wolverine fan, and I'm interested to see how it gets explored further in the pages of this very omnibus. I'm trying to remain optimistic throughout, and so far the early issues within this collection that I've read, I'm really enjoying it, so I'm hoping that keeps up as I make my way through, and I am really happy to welcome yet another Wolverine omnibus into the collection. You'll have to let me know as well in the comments if you've been reading the omnibus line for Wolverine, or if you picked this up. I would like to hear some more comments about this collection, and let's keep on moving forward. Next on the list, we're going to call this a Fantastic Four omnibus, but this is Fantastic Four Doom 2099. I say we're going to kind of call it a Fantastic Four omnibus, and why I say that is because predominantly this is a Doom omnibus. The bulk of this absolutely massive collection does follow the Doom 2099 series, but we do have the 8-issue, I believe, Fantastic Four 2099 series thrown in there as well. I think that's why Fantastic Four does get top billing on this omnibus release, but that is just worth noting, as this is again a huge Doom 2099 collection. If you have been following my channel, you might know I've been making my way through Spider-Man 2099 by Peter David and Rick Leonardi, and I have been really loving my read there. Beyond that, though, I haven't really ventured into other 2099 spaces. I know Marvel released a Ghost Rider 2099 omnibus and an X-Men 2099 omnibus. No Punisher yet, I don't think. But anyway, this is the newest release from Marvel for the 2099 omnibus line, and this is a big one. This is a gigantic book. I think it weighs in just under 1,400 pages, and you feel it. It feels like an absolutely massive collection. As a huge fan of Fantastic Four, and yes, Doctor Doom, this is one I really hope to add into the collection, and so far it's been a blast. This is another one I'm only a few issues into at this time, but so far there's a lot to like. Leaning into that futuristic dystopia of 2099, we have a character going by Doom. I don't want to spoil too much if this is the Doctor Doom we all know and love, or some futuristic iteration of him. I'll leave that for those that want to read through the collection, but we do have a Doom here in the year 2099, and how he just kind of makes his way through this society, I just find absolutely fascinating. I think for longtime fans of Doctor Doom, or the Fantastic Four in general, I think there's really a lot to love here. And also, if you're just generally a fan of Marvel 2099, I think that this is probably a must-get omnibus collection. Really thankful to Marvel for releasing this. I think that this is just kind of a dream book I never really expected to see released, and so now that it's here, I'm just kind of marveling at it. Next up on our haul video, yet another Marvel Omnibus. This is the Web of Spider-Man Omnibus, Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. This kicks off that Web of Spider-Man title, another one of the Spider-Man spin-off books. This is a long-awaited book, and I loved that direct market cover I was able to get with the Kraven's Last Hunt cover. I just think it's a really striking image. But yeah, this collects all the early issues of Web of Spider-Man in chronological order, which is a ton of fun to read through. I am still making my way through this omnibus, though. I have quite a bit to go, but at one point near the back of the book, this does collect the full Kraven's Last Hunt storyline, which is debatably one of the best Spider-Man stories of all time. I used to have that in a paperback collection, but now that I've upgraded to this oversized hardcover format, I did go ahead and part ways with that trade paperback, as I am so excited to have this story collected in full with that oversized format. I also really like that we're starting to get some of these Spider-Man spin-off omnibuses. Like, obviously we have Amazing Spider-Man, we have Spectacular Spider-Man, and now we have Web of Spider-Man here. There's been others too, like the Adjectiveless Spider-Man from Todd McFarlane, or Ultimate Spider-Man, or Spider-Man 2099. Honestly, it's a really great time to be a Spider-Man fan if you're also a Spider-Man omnibus collector, because Marvel has just been cranking these things out in recent years. The art in this period is also pretty interesting. I think some of the art is better than others as you make your way through. I also just think narratively, Kraven's Last Hunt is just in a different tone and gear than a lot of the rest of this omnibus. That being said, again, some of these issues are still a ton of fun to revisit. This is a really interesting period in just the history of Peter Parker even. We have him a lot in this black suit, maybe not symbiote, maybe cloth, but still he's rocking a lot of it throughout this book, which is fun to see. And again, I'm just really happy Marvel is starting to release some of these sought-after wishlist dreamed items, at least for me. Really happy to have this in the collection and just wanted to showcase it for all of you. Okay, keeping the list going, we have Strange Academy Omnibus from Marvel Comics. I did do a short on this collection already because I just really loved the design work of it. I thought it was so striking and I was really happy to get a copy of it. I also did finish this book completely and I did film my review, so I'm unclear when I'm going to drop that review in comparison to this haul video, so maybe I've released it on the channel. If not, certainly stay tuned as it is coming. So what is Strange Academy? I heard people describe it as Harry Potter meets X-Men First Class meets the general Marvel universe, and I think that that's a pretty fair comparison. This is basically a team of teenage magic users within the Marvel universe. Essentially, Doctor Strange begins his own schools, kind of like Professor X has his school for gifted mutants. This is Strange Academy. This is where some of these young magic users go. There are a fun set of twists and turns in this as well. I like that we have some villains perhaps being parents to some of these students. I think that added a lot of fun wrinkles within this collection. The staffing at Strange Academy is interesting, like Brother Voodoo and Magic and Hellstrom and many others. I thought that that was a really interesting way to use some of these more magic-based characters from the Marvel Universe. This is also just one of the most fun I've had with a kind of high school era comic book story in a while. And as a longtime Marvel reader, this is an absolute palate cleanser or breath of fresh air that really breaks up some of the more mainstream superhero comic titles. To me, it's akin to what I felt like when I finished Howard the Duck's Omnibus by Chip Zdarsky and Joe Quinones. Obviously, it's a different vibe there, but it was the same feeling of just being refreshed. Like I was in this amazing comic universe I loved, but I had something that was so tonally different, narratively different, striking characters, and it really just punched out at me, and it made me refreshed to go back and revisit some of the mainstream superhero titles, but also really just thankful for this creative little interlude, and that's certainly what we had here. The writing from Scotty Young I thought was impeccable, and the art from Humberto Ramos was absolutely just captivating. That is Strange Academy. Stay tuned on the channel for more. Okay, next we have the X-Men Decimation Omnibus. And right from the top, I will say one of my absolute favorite Marvel Comics event books is House of M. I did review that omnibus not too long ago, and this can be really seen as a kind of sequel or companion piece to that omnibus. There's also the House of M, I think, companion omnibus, which is obviously a companion as well, but this takes place after the events of House of M. In fact, the first issue in here is part of House of M 8, I believe, that kind of gives us some of the aftermath of what happens with House of M, and then we jump into a sequence of issues and mini-series and one-shots and things that all kind of tie up what happens in the Marvel Universe, particularly for all of our favorite mutant characters after the just earth-shattering events of House of M. And without spoiling too much, House of M really shifts up the status quo for Marvel's mutants, so the X-Men's and all the kind of adjacent X-Men team, and this is a period of time called the Decimation. This is where the mutants are trying to rise from the ashes and figure out what's next. Because of that, this omnibus is really unique. We don't really have it geared around a central event. event as much as a Marvel Comics era. I really thought that was fascinating because a lot of these other omnibuses either collect based on a creator or kind of a sequential run on a given book, or focus around an event, and Decimation is really none of the above. I do think it's closest to an event omnibus, as you do follow the events of House of M, and this does feel like a kind of unifying theme of what's going on, but there's not really like a central, event called Decimation. It's not like Decimation issues 1 through 8 and then all the tie-ins. It's just more of this period of time, and I think that because of that, this is a really fascinating omnibus in my Marvel library, and I'm really liking it. Some of these issues here I have read before, like in the pages of Peter David's X-E Omnibus Volume 2, or paperback copy of The Son of M, and just some other comics here and there, but there are a ton of issues that I've never read before, so as I've been kind of nightly or every few nights reading through this, I'm just really surprised by some of the other things that are happening during this period, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Review to come. Okay, keeping this list right on going, we have yet another Fantastic Four Omnibus. This is the recently released Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 6. I cannot believe we are up this high in the Fantastic Four run, and yeah, this one has been a real treat so far. I have actually started reading this one, as this one is actually a sponsored copy from Organic Price Books, so I'm skipping a little bit ahead in my reading, and I'm just diving right in. We have a lot of great creators attached to this period. We have some Roy Thomas and more, and yeah, this is really engaging so far. I think the characters all look true to form, even if we don't have the great Jack Kirby at the helm artistically. I also just love that we have kind of Bronze Age era Fantastic Four available in omnibus format. We are drawing ever closer to the John Byrne era of Fantastic Four as well, which is collected in a 2-volume omnibus set, and I think that that's really exciting. In fact, I think that Volume 7 of a Fantastic Four omnibus line, if they do solicit that, I imagine that will cross over with the John Byrne era, so that is pretty exciting, because people that are collecting all these omnibuses will have a very long unbroken run. I do think this Volume 6 does get us into issue 200 if I'm not mistaken, so obviously a huge milestone for this fantastic family. Again, I mentioned it earlier in the video, but with Fantastic Four First Steps on the horizon, I've just been thinking so much about these characters, and to go back to some more classic era Fantastic Four, maybe some underrated runs here in early Bronze Age, it's just been a treat. This is one I've been making my way through. Like, I read a fantastic issue or two with The Thing and the Hulk, really fun, a lot of great action-packed scenes there. I just also think it's interesting to see how the characters are speaking and what they're doing at the time. I wouldn't say it's quite dated, but it's definitely of its time, and yeah, just a fascinating read so far. I'm really excited to do a full review of this one down the line on the channel, and yeah, just really happy to have it in the collection. I can't believe we're getting so many sequential volumes of Fantastic Four. Alright, and next up we have one of my most anticipated comic releases of this entire year. That's right, we're talking about Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley Omnibus Volume 2. This not only wraps up this David Michelinie and Mark Bagley run on Spider-Man, but it becomes a huge gap filler beginning with, I don't know, the early Michelinie era all the way through kind of the Clone Saga for Amazing Spider-Man, so this was just such a fantastic release. This omnibus also has the Maximum Carnage event in full, which is just incredible to see in this oversized format. It includes the Lethal Protector miniseries for Venom as well, which I thought was such a cool inclusion to have in this omnibus. For those wondering, we do have quite a bit of double dipping with an omnibus like the Spider-Man vs. Venom Omnibus, and even the Venomnibus Volume 1, but that being said, I still think that this omnibus really does have so much for the Spidey fan out there. I don't mind the double dipping at all, especially because a lot of those other books I can consider in like the Venom Omnibus line, and this is a proper Spidey omnibus. I have read many of these issues before in previous collections and at different times in my life, but there is a handful of issues in this omnibus I have never had the opportunity to read, and I can't wait. The fact that this is again a kind of gap filler as well, finishing out a lot of the Michelinie era and bringing us to the gates of the Clone Saga, is just a real dream for me. I know the Clone Saga is a really controversial time in Spider-Man history, but I'm a huge fan and I'm unapologetic about that. So the fact that we have the lead-in to that era here in this book, I'm just really excited. I'm excited to finish out some of the issues I've never read before. I'm excited to see Max maximum carnage in just a beautiful oversized size. The omnibus also has a ton of great extras, and yeah, I'm just really ecstatic with what we have here from Marvel. Like I said, it was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and so far making my way through, I am really not disappointed. And last but certainly not least, we have a DC Comics title. This is Absolute Mr. Miracle from DC Comics. I'm happy to say that this is actually my first Absolute edition I have ever had, full stop, period, and this is a really terrific one to start with. I recently reviewed the story of Mr. Miracle here by Tom King and Mitch Gerads in the standard size hardcover, so if you're interested in my thoughts on that story, you can check out that video, or stay tuned for my full review of this Absolute Mr. Miracle. Again, kind of like some previous videos I've already mentioned, I'm not sure if I will have released that before this haul or after, but if it hasn't come out yet, stay tuned because I'll try to review this Absolute copy shortly. But this is a really beautiful book. For those that don't know, Mr. Miracle is a 12-issue kind of standalone series that might be set outside of mainstream DC continuity, but it does follow the titular Mr. Miracle through kind of an existential look at his life, almost death and marriage, and I really liked this story. I think that it felt in many ways the most human story I have ever read from DC Comics. Admittedly, I'm a big Tom King fan, and I still think he batted it out of the park here with this release. Mitch Gerads as well is in rare form here. His art is just really surreal, interesting, heavily detailed. I think the reliance this book has primarily on that 9-panel kind of format, it just feels really evocative, interesting, classic, iconic, everything at once. This book had so many twists and turns, and even though I had so much hype for it, it still really did meet my expectations in many notable ways. Seeing it now in this Absolute format, though, this is easily the definitive way to read this book, and yeah, I am really wowed by the size of it. Like I said, this is my first Absolute edition, and it really has me wanting to save up for more, because this is a spectacular way to read incredible DC Comics. Yeah, I mean, this art here, just really good stuff. Anyway, this is Absolute Mr. Miracle. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up today's haul video. These are some of the Marvel and DC comic books I have gotten recently for the personal collection. There's been a couple others, but again, I wanted to curate this haul video primarily focusing on Omnibus and kind of these oversized hardcover formats. I know it leaned Marvel heavy, but frankly, so do I. I am happy to have a couple DC Comics inclusions in this list as well, though. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you have read any of these titles, if you have picked up any of these books, if you plan to, or what are you reading? What have you picked up? What is on your haul list? What can you recommend? I'd love to hear all of that in the comments section, as well as if you'd like to see reviews for any of the books I've shown here in this video, let me know that in the comments section as well. I can definitely see what I can do. And finally, I know I've asked for a lot of comments, but one more if you'll indulge me. Let me know if you enjoyed this haul video. It's been a long time since I've done a haul on the channel, and I thought it would be a fun segment to bring back. I hope you've enjoyed it to that end. I know I had a lot of fun filming it and putting it together and just kind of making my way through some of the newer books in my collection. Thank you so much for taking this ride with me. Thank you again to Organic Price Books, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, all of those comments we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone. Bye.